Thanks for joining the show today. I had a guest on my show about a month ago or so, and her name was Kati Howard, and she was talking about she and her husband saving for over 8 years, about 8 years, trying to buy a home in the Washington state and the struggles they went through. And I received a lot of messages and feedback from that show because it is a problem throughout our state, throughout our country, for young people to afford housing these days. So their route was to save and try to make bids on houses that never came through. And they ultimately got a house because a neighbor knew someone who was about to list, and they got a bid in before it went on the market. That was their only hope. And now they're happily homeowners. So on my show today is Becky Ailor, and I saw recently that she's moved into her home that she built through Habitat for Humanity. So I thought I would show another side of home ownership that is an option in today's market. Thanks for being here, Becky.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I love, we were talking before the show and I can see that you're in that move-in phase and
Yeah,
but I love your pillows.
thank you.
I love the couch. It's all coming
Yeah,
together.
some of them belong outside on my patio furniture, so they just live on my couch when I'm gone. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, thanks for being here. I wanted to talk a bit, as I mentioned just now to the audience, and as you and I have talked before the show, about just solutions for today's young people, middle-aged people, any age people who want to own a home in this market. So tell us a little bit about where you live and how possible homeownership is for a young single mom like yourself. Just talk about the market there. I think it's almost is about the same as it is here because you're in Colorado area, Fort Collins area.
Yeah. Fort Collins is northern Colorado. We're about an hour or an hour north of Denver. Hour on a good day, 2 hours on a bad day. And the market here is pretty crazy. I mean, you really have to be patient and willing to go to battle to try to find a house and to be outbid and outbid and outbid and outbid. And for me as a single mom, I don't even know if I would qualify to own a home here. So that has been a real challenge, and it's been a real roadblock and a struggle to feel like I don't have the option because the market is so saturated. Colorado is a lovely place to be. We have a lot of people who move here from out of state, and it's just a high demand area, and the cost of living is expensive. So I'm not sure what it's like in Washington, but it's hard. It's challenging. It's challenging just to rent too. So it's a difficult market.
So leading up to this, you have a daughter, you're a single mom, you mentioned your daughter's 9, Ember, she's almost
Yeah.
10.
Yeah.
And before the show in our conversation, you'd said you've lived with your mom 3 times. Is that in Ember's life or since adulthood, since you left home? And what time frame was that?
I think they've almost all been in Ember's lifetime. I actually, 2 of them have been in her lifetime, and then 1 other when I came back from Durango and moved back home from Durango and transferred to CSU, and I lived with her at that point too. But yes, I lived with her. Ember and I lived with her for 3.5 years while we did this program, and before that, we needed a place to stay, and thankfully she's here and she has the room for us. And
you share custody of Ember with her dad.
Yes.
Is that
Yep.
a split, like 50-50, or is it you guys have her certain times? So she's with you a lot, just like she's with her dad a lot.
Yeah. Her dad, Pat, we have a great relationship. We split up when Emmy was about 1, and since then, we were never married, so we don't have like a custody like agreement, but we've just always done everything split 50-50. We've worked really hard to, keep that respect and be there for each other and have that family unit for Ember. So we do have 50-50 time. I have her half the week, and then him and his wife, Emmy's stepmom, Kate, they have her half the week. So we have a good schedule.
It's good.
Yeah.
Now, when you're with your mom and you were living with your daughter and your mom, my mom is a wonderful woman. She's an amazing mother. She's an amazing grandmother. But it would be really, really hard to live with her while raising my child because there's so many people in charge, right? When you really just want to be in charge, or was she good at letting you be the mom? What was it like to live with your mom 3 different times, especially the 2 when you were an adult daughter?
Same thing. My mom is an incredible woman. She is a giver and she will do anything and everything for everyone else ever before doing anything for herself. She's just constantly there to give, give, give. And she's amazing. But it is hard because we're still different people and we still lead very different lives. And there's also, in, getting real vulnerable, there's a lot of childhood stuff that you have to work through, and you're redefining your own relationship with your parent while learning how to parent on your own and healing things from your childhood that maybe you wish would have been parented while you're learning to parent. So it can be pretty painful and tough, but it was also something that was really a gift of time for us to have together. But yeah, it was challenging to, I think, find that balance between stepping in and being grandma and stepping in and giving advice and being my parent at the same time and being like the matriarch in the house. We had our ups and our downs and our ebbs and our flows. And it, I would say in reflection now, is more beautiful than brutal, but probably living through it was maybe a little more brutal than beautiful.
Yeah, looking back now, I guess obviously too, you just feel gratitude, right, for having had this.
Yes, wholeheartedly.
Alone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now Ember, she splits her time between the 2 of you. So let's take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about what was so important to you, obviously, to create a home that when she's there with you, it's your space, it's your home. And yeah, I think that one of the things that I think is happening a lot in our country, I've talked with people who are moving home for a while to save for a house. Otherwise, they may never own one, or even having a hard time, like you said, finding places to rent and finding places to buy. I don't know what the market's like there, but here it is. They're on the market for just hours with multiple bids. And if I was just talking with our realtor friends the other day, and if you're not paying cash, forget it. So just want to give some insight to the audience about your story and how it can still be possible. There are different ways to go about it. So we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about you and your daughter and your new home. We're back. We're talking with Becky Ailor. She is a homeowner in Colorado, and we're talking about how she became a homeowner and the struggles. As I mentioned about a month ago, last month or so, I had a young woman on my show who had struggled as well to find a house with her husband, and they saved and looked and bid for 8 years before getting a home. So Becky, you were talking about your point of view being a single mom. You've lived at home with your mom a couple of times while raising your daughter, who's almost 10. And you really wanted a place of your own. So were you were you losing hope? Had you even thought about buying a house? Did you think it was something wasn't even possible for you?
Yeah. So what kind of really led me into this was the end of a relationship. And in that relationship, it was a partnership that I thought was going to be a long-term partnership. And we were looking at buying a house together. But that fell apart. And so you immediately shift gears into how can I do this for myself? And it was defeating. I was like, based on what we had already done, we had gone through a home buying course and met with someone for like a free consultation to let us know if we would be like pre-qualified. And we started these steps and we were looking around, and I really was under the impression it was only going to be doable with both of us. So when that relationship ended, and my main goal is still stability for my daughter and a place for us to grow and a safe space for us to be, it was constantly on my mind. And living at home with my mom was so temporary. and not a permanent solution. She runs a daycare. She has a license for 8 kids. So she runs a daycare out of her home, and it's her business and her place of living. So it was only ever meant to be temporary. And I did feel defeated. I didn't know how I was going to pull off buying a home in this market. My average would be 300,000 to 500,000 if I was qualified for that on my income. So I felt defeated. I didn't know what I was going to do. And my sister-in-law thankfully knew someone who had gone through the program. And I walked into her office one day, and I was like, I'm struggling. I don't really know what I'm going to do and how I'm going to stay in Fort Collins. It's my hometown. I was born here. I love Colorado. I love being here. All of my family's here. All of Ember's dad's family is here. I don't want to go anywhere, but how am I going to stay here and not rent and move every year or have my rent raised? And
Well, that's
thankfully,
one thing that you were talking about, wanting to be home and stay there and be near your family, because Katie, who I talked to last month, she was saying, well, we thought, maybe we'd have to move to the outskirts. And she was a stay-at-home mom, and her husband, was the primary breadwinner. And she said, well, we would have been giving up at least 2 to 3 hours a day with each other because we've been commuting.
Yep.
So like for it to be expected that you have to move, an hour away or 3 hours, wherever it's less expensive, where you can afford, and then not have the support system or the closeness of your family. Because I'll tell you, you living in the town where your family lives and your partner and Ember's dad lives is rare these days. It's really rare. My mom and dad live 35 minutes away. My brother lives in Canada. I haven't seen some of my cousins in years. So that is worth preserving, right? That's worth figuring out a solution for.
Yeah. It didn't feel like I would be gaining anything by saving that money or trying to find a place that I could afford elsewhere, because I'd be losing that time. I'd have to drive and commute, not just to work, but wherever we were living. In comparison to her dad, we'd have to do that however many times a week, plus her school. And it was just pretty hard to think about. And thankfully, she did say, I have the program for you and I know what you need to do.
And this was Habitat for Humanity.
Yeah. And she said, you have to check out Habitat for Humanity. I know a family who just did it. It's amazing. And like, check them out, see if you qualify. So I at the time I was working at my sister-in-law's business. I worked for her for 10 years. So I went to my desk and I typed on the computer, Habitat for Humanity. And sure enough, they had an orientation like that next Tuesday, like 4 days later. And I was like, oh my gosh, go to this orientation, you find out the information, and then you get to apply basically. So they have, they open up applications every so often. I think it's about every year and a half, whenever they do.
You just happen to hear about it and come around about that time.
Yeah.
And
literally found it perfectly.
What about what you read on the website right away made you feel like maybe this could work for you? Or what about the application process? Because most people don't know what makes it that they could qualify. What made you qualify?
So at the time, I went to that orientation. I just felt this universal energetic pull where I was like, yes, this is it. I just know that this is going to be an option, because I've done other programs in our area for low income housing and to find affordable housing. So I do know pretty well what it's like, and they're waitlisted. You're waitlisted for at least 2 to 3 years before you can get into any of that housing. There's just not enough of it. So I knew what the renting options would be in that way. And I just felt so different about it. I was like, this is it. And I went to the orientation, and they go over everything you need to know before you even apply, because the application is hefty and it's big and it's time consuming. And I can imagine it can be very defeating if you're not prepared, and if you have to take some time and do a few steps to be able to complete it. So they do this orientation to really get you prepared for that. And I did it, and it was everything that was said matched up with my life perfectly. So the income example that she gave in her presentation was the exact income I was making at the time. I was making 36,000 a year on salary, and that was the exact income that she used for her example. And then it's 28% of your income, and it just felt like I just had this heart moment of like, yes, I know at least income wise I qualify, I have a stable job. And it worked out. And then all the other qualifications, gosh, I'm like, what are even qualifications now?
I would think of the stability of a long-term job because,
Yeah.
if you don't have a job, if you don't have a way to pay for it, even, I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of program it is, you still have to be able to prove that you are, stable, working, consistently earning
Yep.
money.
Yeah.
To keep the lights on, right? So they don't want to give it to someone, or not give, but work with someone who give that opportunity to someone who can't maintain it. It's kind of like back when they were, I don't know, they build those big houses for people and surprise them, and then how do they keep
Yeah.
the lights on, right?
Yes. Yeah. And you have to qualify for a loan either way. You still have to be able to pay for it. You are qualifying for any other loan. And
And is
yes, they
credit an issue? Is credit something they look at, and is there any kind of break in the credit, or is it have to be?
Hmm. Um, I don't think credit is an issue. They do, of course, look at your credit score, but I never felt like credit was ever a hindrance to it, because they have so many other determining factors. Mine also had to do with family size. I am a single parent, but there's also the community is made up of not just families and not just single parents. I think that is a misconception. There are lots of different people and lots of different ages because the program is meant to provide housing for all different kinds of people. But my family size did qualify. So they qualify so many different, I guess whatever category you fall in, they do so many per group that they
And
accept.
years ago, I had a radio show and I interviewed a family who'd received a Habitat for Humanity home here in our area. And he was, I believe, a liver transplant patient, and just the chronic illness and the medical bills. And so people don't really think about, we talked off air about the misconceptions.
Mhm.
What were some of the misconceptions? People think you get the house for free. People think, what are some of the misconceptions that even you were uninformed about until going to the orientation and going through the process?
Yeah, I didn't really know either because I've built with Habitat. I built when I was involved with my youth group growing up. We went and we did many builds all over the country, but I didn't know either. So it was really cool to hear that it's just a really hands-on, involved, community-oriented program. I know all of my neighbors because I've met most of them through the program, if not the other ones while on the site building. And it's really focused with you building your own home and building your neighbor's home. So you do have that community build. So you have to put in 250 sweat equity hours. And that's how many hours I had to put in, which means I'm actually on the construction site doing manual labor and building. Part of those hours are also financial courses that we have to take. We had to do a 9-week Financial Peace University course, and we do other courses. And a lot of them have to do with credit. So that's why credit doesn't necessarily have like such a big piece in the qualifying. It is like a factor, but it's not like it is. I don't think it's as impactful as it is when you're just renting or even necessarily buying on the open market. But this,
Because for a lot of people, this is a fresh start. So maybe
yeah.
So then when you went through the process, well, let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, I want to hear about how you,
Okay.
like how you said 250 hours in the build, and your daughter got to be part of it, but couldn't be on site because of her age. So let's take a break and come back and figure out exactly how you went about getting the lovely home where you are now.
Awesome.
We'll be back in just a moment. We're finishing up our conversation with Becky Ailor. She is a single mom in Northern Colorado who has built her own home through Habitat for Humanity. Habitat for Humanity, which is where you're sitting now in your lovely home. I said I love those pillows. Let's just, we were talking about how you had to put in 250 sweat equity hours into your home. You got to know your neighbors, you got to be part of the neighborhood. Your daughter couldn't be on site because of her age, but she has to give 10 hours too. In what form did she give her time?
Yeah. So she would come and do any of the events that we did. We have a little playground area over in our like green area, and she came to the ribbon cutting of that and the dedication to that. She came to the Christmas like white elephant gift exchange, and a bunch of other different basically community things that they had. And she loved it. I think it was definitely harder for her because she wasn't as involved. So it was like, are we going to move yet? Are we going to move yet? But she did get to be in those events and get to meet other people, and of course, meet the people that I get to work with all the time, and still get to celebrate in some way and be a part of it. But I got to learn a lot of construction skills on the site. I learned all the power tools and how to do things I never thought I'd learn. So it's been pretty cool to gain new skills, and also just see how a house is built and be a part of it. It was cool going from dirt pile to foundation all the way up. It's a neat process.
I could have used your help the last 40 hours. I've been working on this project in my laundry room, painting cabinets and putting up wallpaper. Why I have to put up wallpaper in a room that has 3 cabinets, a window, and 2 doors. It was a big mistake, but that's another show. So let's talk about, now you're in your home and you've been there 3 weeks. You closed 3 weeks ago. And how does it feel? I mean, it was a long process. How long did it take to build your home?
So my home has been under construction it took about a year to complete.
You're about a year and a half into this process from when you first saw the application.
Yes, I was about a year and a half in, and then the build started. And then it was a pretty quick build. The house did go up what felt fast for me. I think it even went up under that time. Yeah, it was really cool. It was a cool year, and I'm glad it got to be at the end of the process and not the beginning. It was really neat.
Talking about wanting some time to build this relationship where it's just you and your daughter. Mm-hmm. We only have a couple minutes left, but tell me what it is about having your own space with her that, first of all, the very first feeling or the thing you've noticed has just enriched your lives already.
It's just nice for us to get to be able to have our own connection without any other energy, and just get to build something that's just for us. It's been a lot of surviving and living and dealing. So it's been a breath of fresh air to really get to build and create something new and breathe this like life into the energy that we are. We're fun and silly and energetic and creative, and we like to do a lot of art projects, and it did feel like that's finally here. So it was a big waiting process. We had to be very, very patient to get through, and it was very difficult, but we are all smiles. I mean, moving is not easy, but we are all smiles. She's loving her room, loving our neighborhood, the playground. She's met all of her neighbor friends already, and it's so great to see them play, and they just go outside and they have so much fun. And that is more than I could ever ask for. That alone is worth it.
Well, I'm really happy for both of you, for your whole family. Your mom probably misses you, but she's excited for you as well, I'm sure. And she lives close by, so she still gets to see you regularly.
Yeah, she's only actually like a mile down the road, so we're not even from her. So
you can walk
I see
there.
And it's great. She's very happy for us, of course.
Well, congratulations, and thank you for sharing with our audience another way that it can happen. There's got to be a way. There's just always a way. So thank you for sharing your story.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It's so lovely.
In Colorado, I'll bring you a housewarming gift.
Oh,
see your house.
I just want to see your beautiful face. That's all.
Thank you for being here.